It's been a while since we talked about the TI99 4A, so I thought it'd be a good time to bring out the TI99, and this time we're going to try our hand at some graphics with the TI99 Super Sketch here on Vintage Geek. Just a reminder, if you like vintage technology, including vintage peripherals like the one we're covering today, be sure to like and subscribe. It's going to help us a lot as we grow, and I encourage you to become a member of Vintage Geek. You can do that at our website at vintagegeek.com. Back in the early 80s, a lot of companies were getting into the field of graphics for computers, and there were a number of different graphics tablets available at the time. We talked briefly about the X-Pad, one that Radio Shack had built for the color computer, and that was certainly a capable device, but it was pretty expensive at the time. So along came a company called Personal Peripherals Inc. They were based in Irving, Texas, and they came out with a product called the Super Sketch. Now, I don't know much about the company. I tried to do a little bit of research on them, and there really isn't much out there. I did find out that one of their staff members, I assume, whose name was Tom Hilton, actually patented this device, but it was called a digital joystick device. And according to the patent documentation, which got into a lot of really technical detail that was a little bit above my pay grade, it talked about the difference between analog joystick controllers at the time and what was then new digital joystick controllers, which this apparently falls into the category of. I don't really know exactly how it works, but it does appear from looking at the box that it's basically a joystick device that moves along with you moving the pencil along a paper. One of the things about it that's interesting is that it was a pretty low price point at the time, with most graphics tablets going in the $300 range. This was sitting around $50 to buy new, which made it affordable for the home market. Now, from everything I've read, this device made by Personal Peripherals was available for a number of different systems, one of them being the TI99 4A, which is the version that we have. There was also a version for the ColecoVision, and I'm not sure if that was specifically for the Atom or if you could actually use that for the ColecoVision game system as well, and there was a version for the Commodore 64. I'm not sure of other ones in existence, so if you're familiar with the Super Sketch product, please sound off in the comments below. I'd like to hear more about other versions that may exist. Let's just jump right in and see what the Super Sketch is all about. So this is the Personal Peripherals Super Sketch. It's a pretty nice device. It's got a little bit of weight to it. It's made out of heavy-duty plastic. I do like the kind of rainbow logoing across the top. Looks pretty snazzy. There are several buttons across the top of the unit here. The first thing I noticed about the top section of the device is that there's these two kind of tabs that lift up. This is to hold the paper in place, and then there is an actual release button that lifts them both at the same time, which is pretty handy. There's a lot of strength in the spring here, so I could see where it could hold your paper down pretty well and keep everything in place, which is great. There's a button for the menu, which I assume we'll see once we use the software as to what that does. And there's also a lift button on both sides of the unit. From what I've read so far, it looks like when you're moving this around, you're basically drawing, but if you want to quote-unquote lift the pencil off the paper, you would have to hit this button so that the software knows that's what you're doing, because obviously lifting the pencil is just going to lift it out of the holder, which is actually at the end of this kind of a plexiglass piece, and you would put the pencil or pen in the end of this, and then you should be able to draw, and the device will capture your movements into the software. I mean, it's pretty clever, if anything else. It's definitely different than other graphics tablets we've looked at. The X-Pad, for example, just has a pen, and the pen actually transmits coordinates to the color computer in its case. This one is actually using some kind of potentiometers, I assume, inside this package to measure where this particular device is at any given time. So it's a different concept, and I could see where they would apply for a patent for it. It doesn't seem like there's anything else quite like it from the time that I've seen, so I wonder how well it will perform. Some of the information I read online had an early review of the product that said that it was quite impressive for the price point, but they still considered it a toy, whatever that means, so maybe that's because of the graphics capability of the TI99 and the other associated computers that were used with it. I'm not really sure, but it wasn't a bad review overall. It also comes with a cartridge that's attached to a wire. This cartridge is labeled Sketch Master, and I believe that's the name of the software that is embedded on the cartridge that makes the device work. So because this is all cartridge based and it has a wire connecting it, this makes it a very easy setup. We don't have to worry about bringing in the disk drive or loading from cassette or anything like that with the TI99, so that definitely puts it up one notch in my book, so I'm excited to give this a try. So right away, the first screen that comes up is the Super Sketch logo with the software that comes with it. I will say that that's a pretty cool logo. I like the moving color bands going through it. Looks like it was by someone named Steve Rubik. It's asking me to press menu to proceed on the Super Sketch device. So apparently that is what that button is for. I'm going to go ahead and hit that button now. Okay, looks like we've got kind of a clear drawing screen here. There's various colors in the band to the left, and we've got several different options for clear, swap, expert, brush, eraser, draw, fill, and show. Now it looks like it's on draw now, and I don't know if this menu is moved by the actual, oh, it is. That's pretty neat. So draw is where we want to be ultimately here. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the select button. I assume that's what that does. Great. So this seems pretty intuitive so far, if I'm honest. Now I did bring a pencil and a piece of paper today, so we can do a little bit of freehand drawing. The original packaging for this did come with some example sketches that you could trace with the device. Unfortunately, our version did not have those. I assume that they were lost to the tolls of time. So we're gonna do some freehand drawing to start out with, just see what the device does. So let's get out a piece of paper and put it in our Super Sketch device here. We'll lift this up a little bit. And these little tabs going to go up so we can hold the paper in place. And that locks that down pretty nicely. Put the pencil in here, and it's a loose fit. It's not, you know, you've got quite a bit of play, so it's not going to be a perfect tracking of the drawing, but it should be fairly close. Right now it's just going to be moving in the menu, so I need to get out of the menu first. Here we go. So I hit lift. That brings me to a clear screen, and I'm drawing. Okay, so here we are. We're drawing a line upwards, and as you can see, I'm very good at drawing straight lines. Perfectly straight, no problems at all. Let's bring that across here. It's a little bit strange because you have the inclination to want to follow the screen rather than following the pencil, but that's a little counterintuitive because if you follow the screen, it's not as easy to draw something cleanly. Just draw this box. Now the paper moved a little bit, so that's gonna probably throw me off at the end. Now to lift it, I'm gonna have to hit the lift button, so now we can move it. Okay, that works. Let's try to draw a box inside the box, so I can remove the lift key. Bring this over. You almost need something to hold the bottom edge of the paper, I feel like. Not bad though. Let's lift this, bring this back down. I assume if I want to use the fill function, these need to be complete lines, and I've got a couple of gaps here, so I'm going to need to fill those in. And if it makes kind of a double line there, that should close the gap on that one. Let's lift it and bring it back. See if I can close the gap up here. It tracks pretty well, even when I go back to the parts of the paper that I've drawn on before. It does seem to line up pretty well, so that's impressive. Try to fill that little section in there. Okay, that looks good. So now I've got this kind of weird box with a box inside of it. Let's experiment a little bit with the fill commands here. So if I go to menu, let's pick a color. How about green? Go with green and select. Okay. Oh, that's kind of handy too. The actual border of the screen shows the color you're working with. I didn't realize that before. And then if we go down to fill, and we select that, now I'm going to go ahead and lift so I get back into the drawing mode, and we'll go ahead and go in this kind of frame part that we've created here inadvertently. See if we can fill this in. I don't know if I have to hit select on this. Aha. Okay. All right, that's pretty cool. Works pretty efficiently. Let's see if we can pick a different color for the inner box. How about light blue? And then we need to hit the lift button again. We come over here and we hit select. Oh, that didn't quite work as I expected. I must have left a gap in the that section of the border or something, but it's working pretty well overall. There should be a clear, maybe I have to actually click on that. Yep. There we go. I'm not sure what the expert mode does, so let me see what that is all about. Oh, interesting. Lines, raise, horizontal or vertical, box, save, load, rewind, fast forward. Okay, so this must be the function menu to be able to save things to a cassette via the TI99. We're not going to try that today, but that's definitely handy. I assume if you were doing a lot of artwork with the system, you'd definitely want a way to be able to save it. These lines and raise, this may actually help you with creating straight lines, which I've shown that I'm bad at. So let's see what happens if we pick lines. Okay. Oh, interesting. So with the line mode, it's more like a paint program where it's actually just creating the line for you and you can move it around. See if I can make a straight line here. And it does stay from the same point, which would be a little confusing if you were doing this for a lot of things, but it is good at making straight lines. Lift. Oh, that's handy though. When you hit the lift button, it actually jumps to the end of the line that you were just on, so you can continue from that point. I can't tell if it left a gap there though. That would be annoying. Let's see if we can complete the box here using the line function. There we go. Looks a lot better than the box I did freehand, so I'm glad that they included that function with the tablet. There's more here than I would have expected, especially for a device that was only $50 at the time, which was still expensive, but compared to everything else on the market, that was definitely a bargain. Now I'm back in the menu. I'm gonna go ahead and try some other material now. So let's release our paper from this. I have to bring out something fun from a video we did in the past on the Roger Rabbit game for the PC. The manual for this had a lot of line type drawings in it, so it might be an easy thing to try to trace and draw. Let's give this a shot. Let's just draw in black and white for now. Select that. And now we should be ready to draw. So we'll lift. Hold lift so we can get over to our starting position, and I'm just going to try to do this without lifting as much as possible. This is a little bit difficult because the drawing is small and the movement is limited in the device of how much you can actually get into those fine details. But it's not bad at tracking so far. I'm anxious to see what this actually looks like because I'm really studying the paper right now. Well, that's not quite it. It's kind of the resemblance of a bear trap, but definitely not exactly what I was going for. I think I need some larger source material, something to trace that's going to be a little bit easier and has a little bit more space to work with. There's a shrinking potion bottle on the page, and that should be fairly straightforward. So we'll start here. I'm going to trace around this. That's more closely resembling a bottle. Still leaves a lot to be desired. I can tell you that my tracing ability is not great, but it is definitely better than what's currently represented on the screen. But nonetheless, I can see where this could work. You just need something that's basically the size of the piece of paper. You don't want something that's fine, a lot of fine detail and a lot of small movements. So let's try something else, maybe something a little bit bigger, something easier to trace. About the Vintage Geek logo. So this should have plenty of space. I printed out a large copy of the logo. I'm going to try to keep this within the boundaries. And we need to go back to our menu and go ahead and clear this page. All right, now we're back on our clean slate. So let's start at the top left-hand corner and try to go from there. We're going to start with the outline itself. This should be fairly straightforward, I hope. The side-to-side movement is where things get a little bit more difficult. It's very smooth moving up and down on the page, but the side-to-side is where it just isn't quite as fluid. I feel like this top bar is going to be a little bit of a challenge. Whoops. I definitely had some issues. This one's tough because it's at the very edge of the motion of the device itself. So this is going to be a little off, I feel like. We've got our box. It actually went off the screen because I'm a little bit out of bounds. Let's get into the main part of the logo here and see if we can make this work. And we're hitting the boundaries of the screen. It's hard to tell exactly where that is in relation to the device itself. I assume that that may be because the examples they gave you with it probably had some kind of boundaries built in where it would automatically be within the field. Let's go ahead and lift that before I draw all over my clean drawing here. Let's see if we can get the G part of the logo. I mean, it's starting to look like something. Let's see if we can get our lettering in place here. I think we're going to have some trouble filling those letters because it did hit the boundary of the screen. Now with the letters themselves, I'm not going to do the full outline. I'm just going to try to trace the midpoint of the actual letters. I think that'll be easier than trying to make that work, especially given the resolution. Down to the second line now. almost there. All right, and we have a Vintage Geek logo, albeit it definitely looks like it was done by hand, which it was. But I mean, let's be honest, the technology at the time for this to have this good a resolution and to be able to trace as well as it actually does is pretty impressive to me, to be honest. All right, so now let's see if we can fill in the VG part of this, which I have a feeling is going to fail because the tops of the letters are not connected. But let's go ahead and go into the menu, go down to fill, and select on that. Now we need to pick our color, so let's go ahead and get a green color here. There we go. Now, if we lift, go over to our drawing here. I don't believe there's an undo in this program, so if this fill backfires, the painting will be ruined, so let's give it a shot. Hey, it worked. Nice. See if we can do this on the other letter. This may be where it all falls apart. All right, hey, we got a filled in VG for the Vintage Geek logo, so that actually worked out better than I expected. The overall quality of the device is pretty good. As I mentioned, the up and down movement is definitely easier to do than the side to side, probably just because there's a little bit more tension in that part of the movement of the apparatus itself. But overall, pretty solid device, and I could see where this would be really popular with kids and so forth at the time, because you could draw a lot of things freehand, you could trace your favorite things that may be in books or magazines, and make them show up in digital form on the screen. And I'm sure that with a little bit of practice, you could kind of get past the inherent shortcomings of trying to make this work with the low resolution that it has. I think it's a pretty solid device, and especially for the price it was offered at the time. So glad that we have one of these here in the Vintage Geek Museum for sure. Once again, if you're into vintage technology and vintage peripherals like the Super Sketch that we have here today, be sure to like and subscribe. It's going to help us a lot as we grow, and I would encourage you to go to the website and consider becoming a Vintage Geek member. As a member, you get special discounts to the museum and tours. You also get access to special content not available anywhere else. It's all at vintagegeek.com. Until next time, I'm Aaron, and this has been Vintage Geek.